Hello and welcome to another edition of Sun Dragon Tips and Tricks. I'm Rebecca. I'm the owner of Sun Dragon Art and Fiber in downtown Brevard, North Carolina. Mondays are home. So I thought this week, it's not a big tips and tricks with my hands and the pictures and the stuff, and it's more in line a little bit with my life lessons from knit and crochet. We are doing this February at Sun Dragon, we're doing Finish It or Frog It February. And it's just the fun idea of finishing projects or frogging them during the month of February. And let me tell you, this does not mean that I'm going to either finish or frog everything that I have on needles. It's kind of impossible. I have at least like 50 projects on needles, or that I'm crocheting, or one of those. So I'm not going to put the pressure on myself of finishing all of those. And if I can't finish them, I must frog them. It's not intended to be a pressure filled thing. And here's what I'm taking from life from it, or maybe life is coming at me. It's a little bit like, maybe it's a little life coming into the knitting and crocheting. So it's like reverse life lessons. I'm approaching this a little bit like the Marie Kondo version of cleaning out your house, right? Does it bring you joy? Does the project you're working on bring you joy? And I mean, that could be said for so many things in life, right? And I am dividing things and trying to keep track of them on my website, sundragonartandfiber.com. The FIOFIF tab, FIOFIF, Finish It or Frog It February. I'm keeping tabs on my projects as I do these things to them. So there is the frogging and the finishing. Absolutely, what can I finish? And what do I know for multiple reasons I am not going to finish, and so I'm going to frog. And for anyone who doesn't know the lingo, knitters and crocheters, we think we're funny. So here's one that I am frogging. It's called frogging when you rip it out. So you rip it, and this is mohair, so it likes to stick. So I have to rip it, rip it, rip it. Sounds like ribbit. Yay, we got jokes. So frogging, I can frog this while I talk, it can actually be super therapeutic. I'm going to get back to my subcategories and things here in a second. It can be really like when it gets like this, it's like, like, but to pull something out, to take out the expectations from it, the weight of this hanging over my head. I mean, I may not be completely happy. There might be part of me that says, man, I wanted to finish that. If so, it goes into a third category. It goes into I pledge that I will finish it in the future. So it doesn't have to be, well, I can't finish it this month, so I have to frog it, because that is its own sadness. That's its own, that's adding its own weight and anxiety and other things to you potentially. And like, all of us are going to fall in different places on the spectrum of what is going to make us happy and bring us joy. For some, it could be looking at it and putting it back in its project bag because you know you're going to work on it later. You know that later it will bring you joy. So I have the finish it category. If I can bind off like a finished product, yay, victory, wonderful. There is the frogging it because either the yarn wasn't going with the pattern, like it doesn't look good, it doesn't look how I wanted it to. Frog that sucker. Rip it out. You'll be amazed potentially how much lighter you'll feel. It could be I know I can't finish this today, but I know I do really want to finish it, and that is what is going to bring me joy eventually. And that is the third category. Pledge to finish it later. Say, yes, I can make time for this at some point in the future. It will not die in timeout, in retirement, in hibernation, all the different names we give it. And the fourth category for me, it works for me as a shopkeeper because I can hang on to things I've worked on as like little samples for the shop. But instead of frogging it, there's binding it off wherever you're at in it. It could be a recognition of, I want to cherish the work I put into this. Doing this is not going to make me as happy as it would someone else, but binding it off and keeping it as a memento, as a look what I did. I didn't finish it, but I made progress. I learned something. It gives me a reference guide down the road if I want to try this again. For me as a shop owner, it's see, here's a little piece of this pattern. Here's a little how these, here's how this yarn feels knit up. It's very functional for me as a yarn shop owner. But I think all 4 of these can be super functional for all of us. Take stock of your works in progress. On a literal level, take stock of your works in progress and figure out what's going on with them. If you are a monogamous knitter, this isn't much of a challenge. Like someone who only works on one project at a time, not much of a challenge, and that's okay. Some people, what brings them joy is being a monogamous knitter, and that's fantastic. For those of us who have a few projects on needles to like the ridiculous amount that Liz and I have on needles, this can be a way to thin the herd. This can be a way to just keep things reasonable. If what brings you joy is having so many projects on needles that you can like spend every minute of every day on something different, that's okay too. You don't have to frog anything. You don't have to finish anything. The point of this exercise is not to add stress to your life. It is hopefully to de-stress, to declutter, to find a way to add joy to your life. That is always my goal. And sometimes I lose track of it when I'm starting so many things and I'm chasing butterflies and I'm saying, but oh, someone at the shop might like to do this, but someone else who comes to the shop might like to see this. And it gets overwhelming really fast. I think we've said in videos before, sometimes we suggest to new knitters or people who want to venture out of monogamous knitting to have 2 or 3 projects, to have one that that is a simple knit and one is a more complicated knit or crochet. And you can do the simple one until you get bored. And then you can switch to the complicated one until your brain starts to melt out your ears. And then you go back to the simple one. And that can sometimes snowball. But think about these 4 things for the rest of your life too, and how they could apply to almost any situation. To-do lists, tasks, other things. Marie Kondo does it for just things in your house. I mean, if you've ever seen the background when I'm filming, I have a lot of clutter. It's a thing. But it's really taking these projects that maybe have been sitting for a while, taking things in your life that have been sitting for a while and saying, okay, does this bring me joy? Is this something I want to pursue? If so, awesome. Put it in the category of going to be finished eventually. Is this something that's so close to being done, but I've gotten distracted by other things in life? Is this something that if I devote some energy to it, I could check a box, I could call it done, I could have something, when we're talking about knitting, something I could wear? How refreshing would it be to put everything else aside and focus on that and finish it? Now, on the flip side, what's going on in your life, or what is in those project bags over there, that if you pick it up and consider it, it's really not bringing you joy? Now, there's always the subcategory of some stuff that doesn't bring you joy has to get done. I have a couple things in that category. It may go into the going to be finished later, not so much because it brings me joy, but because, adulting. It's got to get done. It's good for the shop to have a sample in this yarn, even though, not necessarily passionately moved by it. But for the things that have been hanging for so long, they're not necessities, but they've just been hanging over your shoulder for so long. And maybe they're only there because they were started. And because we're not supposed to give up on things. That's not okay. But honestly, think about, is it going to bring you joy to complete it? And if the answer is no, you're not giving up on it. You are actively acknowledging that that is something that you didn't want to do. And that's okay. You started, you learned things potentially, but it's not for you. I think about the projects, people coming saying, I need to make a sweater, or I should be making socks, or these shoulds. That's maybe red flags for it should be frogged. So think about that for things in your life too, if it applies. If it's not bringing you joy, if the only reason you're still doing it, it's not necessary, it's not full-blown adulting has to get done, but you started it, and it's weighing you down. Maybe it's time to let it go. And maybe it fits that fourth category where you can preserve a piece of it. You can keep the idea of what you accomplished and what you did. Sometimes we don't need that physical reminder and we can totally let it go. And sometimes just having that little piece we can put in the closet, that's okay. That's a nice, compromise between everything. So I'm going to continue with Finish It or Frog It February. And I'm going to look at my projects, but maybe I'm going to reevaluate some things in my life too, into those 4 categories. What doesn't bring me joy? And I might want to let go of and rip it out. Don't even need the reminder in my life anymore. And take this metaphor in whatever way you want. You could take the yarn, like on a physical level, take the yarn, make a new project. Take that project, use different yarn. There are all kinds of metaphorical ways to interpret that if we're going to apply it to something else in our lives, right? but how much lighter will you be if you find a way to let it go? I could take my metaphor and imbibe this with something, and as I'm frogging it, I'm letting it go. So that's category 1. Category 2, as we review and wrap up, something that we learned from, and we want to hang on to that, but we don't want to hang on to the process, the everything else. Bind a piece off. Call it done. Don't completely erase it from your life, but call it done and give it its place and move on. Then there's the finishing it. What tasks, what projects do we have that we are really close? You know what? If we just gave it a day or two, if we just devoted a little bit of energy to it, we could check it off as complete and done and satisfied. And then what are the things that they're hanging back there? They're in the project bags. They've been in deep hibernation for quite some time. But you still do very much care about them, and you know you will get them done someday. You are not ready to let go of them. And that's okay. If you manage to figure out what doesn't bring you joy and what you can let go of, you have more time and energy to devote to those things down the road. So I'm sure there's all kinds of deeper hidden meanings in all of this. But to return to a literal level, if you'd like to see what I am frogging, what I am binding off, what I am actually finishing, and what I am pledging to finish later, you can go to sundragonartandfiber.com and click the FIOFIF link, and I will keep updating that throughout the month. I will also be having videos and pictures on my Instagram and Facebook account of things I'm finishing, working on, frogging, binding off, all those good things. And we may be doing some of this on the side show as well, the sister channel to this tips and tricks right here. But for this week, no in-depth instructional video, just a reflection on projects and life. Does it bring you joy? The things that have been tucked away but are still hanging over us, do they bring us joy? Is there a reason to continue with them? Or can we get them done or let go of them? let's see what happens. I don't have an official project count at this moment in time for how many projects I have on needles. I have that ballpark. It's probably at least 50. Let's see where I am by the end of February. I'm going to try my darndest not to start anything new while I go through this process. Think about what you want to do with the things hanging around in big boxes, in project bags, piling up in the corners. And as I always like to say, may your crafting be filled with joy and confidence. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.